things I talk about may have relevance, they may not have relevance. They could be out there, they could be just down there. But in a way, it's therapy for me, and hopefully there's people out there that are like-minded, so, we can discuss stuff. So, let me start on a subject that I think people care about, and that is the Great British Pub. That's right. There's roughly about 46,000 pubs in the entire UK. The pub in British culture has always been a centre of the community, a place where people come and meet. I mean, we've all, especially people of my age, have experienced the times in the pub where you've learned something, you've met someone. Sometimes it could even be your life partner. Pubs have been central to communities for hundreds of years. But there seems to be a problem with pubs at the moment, and there's a lot of pubs closing. Now, a lot of people are putting that down to the financial side of running a pub, the rates, business rates, and the price of beer itself, which I believe now in some places is nearly £10 a pint. When I started drinking, it was roughly about just over £1, I think. But I'm not a drinker, so. So what I want to say is that you're right, there is financial problems with pubs. Pubs are closing at an alarming rate at the moment due to the fact that they're not an affordable business choice. And that, unfortunately, isn't the main reason, I think, that pubs are closing. You see, I think it's a systematic process that has been occurring over a long time, a very long time, especially when it comes to the working person. As I say, pubs have always played a strong part in our culture, in our history, as places for communities to meet. Working people could go there at one time because it was better than drinking the water. And they congregate, they meet. And this is the problem that I think there is, in so much as if people are meeting in one place, then they're usually sharing ideas. And from them ideas come plans. And from them plans come realizations. And people start learning things and understanding things, such as the political system. By making pubs unaffordable, we are literally forcing people to go to cheaper sources, such as the supermarket, which then leads to them going home and drinking beer at home, where they can sit in front of a screen, whether that be the television, the computer, or even your mobile phone. And those ideas that used to flow in the pub amongst your mates and amongst strangers, and disagreements that were ended amicably. Sometimes they didn't, but a lot of the time they finish amicably over a beer and a laugh. And people become stronger, bonds become more united, people become more united. And that scares the political powers, the powers that be. Because when the working class get together, then it usually leads to change. Look at some of the reform acts of the 1800s. They weren't just suddenly thought up overnight and then enacted in Parliament. No, these ideas were brought about by sharing of views and opinions in places like coffee houses and especially pubs. The Jarrow Marches were started in pubs. Most of the working class movements that have occurred in British history have probably, if not definitely, started in a pub. The pub is the place of the working man. It's where a working man can discuss his ideas. It's where the working man or person, sorry for those that are out there, but it's also where we can exchange those ideas, settle our disagreements, come to compromise, which is the true art of politics. But that's being taken away from us because it's easier to control us through the TV screen, through the social media platforms, through our mobile phones. They dictate to us what we think. They've taught us that it's More important to read the headline. Don't have to worry about the story. It's made us lazy. We're part to blame for this because of the fact that we've just got to survive. We've got to maintain our own little bubbles, you know. But the British pub is dying, and it's really sad because it's a very, very strong part of who we are as British people. It's the only meeting place we've got left. Once they take that, they've totally destroyed any form of community or free place to be able to discuss freely, face to face, not over social media, not over a screen, not through messages, but face to face in a way that people should be communicating, orally, speaking. Doesn't take a lot. But as I say, if we don't have the pub, we can't do this. Therefore, another part of our community is fragmented. Community was destroyed. Well, I've never really known a true community that hasn't been destroyed since I've been born. The 80s, they took away pretty much everything for kids. Education was changed, everything was privatised. Didn't help us none. We're still here, holding on to the one few things, the only things that we've got that make the end of the week bearable for some. Sometimes it's just a lifeline. I say just a lifeline. It's an important lifeline, especially in rural communities and places like that. The pub needs to be safe. We need to think about it, not just from a monetary point of view, but what effect it is actually going to have socially on people. How exactly are they herding the sheep into the pens to read what they want you to read, to learn what they want you to learn? We're told not to believe what we see on the screens all the time. And you're right, you shouldn't. But then how do you know what the truth is? Again, the only way that people are ever going to know that is if they sit down with each other, commune, and converse, exchange ideas, disagree. It's all right to disagree. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing. But we take that too personally. The word no is just a word. It means nothing. So imagine what it would be like if all the pubs were to close. If the only place you could get your alcohol, your weekly beer, what if the only place you could get that was at the supermarket? And what if the only place that you could go to drink it was at home? What would that be like? Would you feel as connected as you do now? I mean, we're all pretty disconnected as a society. But would that just add to it? Would that make it worse? And then you've got to consider things like, well, if you're taking the drink from the pub and you're taking it into the home, what effect is that going to have on things like domestic violence? I mean, we know that alcohol is a main contributor to domestic violence. So that would just increase all that. All because they want us to sit in front of a screen and listen to the propaganda, the lies, the confusion, the fear, everything that they use to control each and every one of us. This world works because the working people work. Whilst they're separated, they don't function. It's like a beehive. You can take the bee out, the bee's just a bee. But you put them all together and they're an entirely different body. And that's what we've got to remember. Starting with a pub, we've got to remember that that is where we meet. That is who we are. That is where our ideas, the working class, that is where our ideas are worked out, ironed out, and put into plans to take action against so-called professional politicians, which in its own way is a little joke, but that's an entirely different episode, if this actually makes anything out of it. So yeah, a future without a pub would just be a total disconnect of the working classes. And the working classes are the ones that operate the machinery that make the money for those that are trying to shut the pubs. Work that out. So as I said, I'm not a drinker. I don't frequent pubs as often as most would. I never knew why. I just never did. I did when I was younger, and they were important to me because that's where I met my friends. That's where I grew up. That's where I learnt the things that I know and the skills that I have. But a pub is important to everybody in so much as, well, look upon it this way. There's some people that haven't got anybody out there. Going to the local pub is their only touch with other adults or humans, full stop. Some people rely on that, not because they're like serious drinkers, just for the company, for the safety, and for the sense of community that a pub will invoke in someone. It's also a place where you can go out, you can socialise, you can actually enjoy things and forget about your day without having to use your thumbs and your eyes only. You know, darts teams, pool teams, there's pub games galore. When I was a kid, we used to go darts with my dad. You know, it weren't great, it weren't nothing professional, but it was a good night out. Everyone seemed to enjoy themselves. People were having a good time. People were forgetting about the drudgery that they have to go through from day to day. Again, that's something that they're taking away by closing the British pub. And I'm not even a drinker, and I really care that passionately about it that, I don't know, be sad if it goes. Be like the wreckage of our castle. The destruction of our imagination almost. The forum that the working class use. All right, the way that we settle arguments aren't necessarily the best way. But eventually, you know, we get around it. We work things out. We iron things out. And most of that is done over a beer or a cup of tea. And that's done in a pub where you know the people. They become friends. They become family. They become community.